Introducing the Mod System by Target Darts as a part of their 2022 launch. I'm Jen Mounts with A2ZDarts.com, and I'll be giving you an in-depth review of the entire Mod full system build, as well as some advice on how to envision your own home setup before investing into your custom build, since all of these products are sold separately. Before I start, definitely utilize the time codes that I'm going to put in this video so you can hop skip around the content to learn exactly what you came here for. With that said, here's the exact order I'm going to cover the Mod system in. An overview of how the system works with the Mod Hub, how to rotate your dartboard, an explanation of the 4 power outputs on the hub and how to make the most out of them with your accessories, the rail slots, and best practices on how to buy the rails and position them, what accessories are available to place on your rails, and best practices on how to position those. Then we're going to cover the Mod Halo light, how to mount it, or how to use your current Corona light instead. Finally, we'll do some throwing action on the board and I'll give some insight on the overall experience. Let's get started. The hub. No matter what, the entire point of the whole system is to start with the hub as your foundation and then custom build from there. So when you buy the hub, you're only going to get a power cable, a bracket to mount the hub to the wall, and a spring bracket for the back of your dartboard, which is going to lock into the hub. And to lock your board into place, you start by aligning the 18, essentially where the 20 should be. It'll fit right in and you just turn clockwise. And you're going to have like a degree or two to kind of play with to make sure that that 20 is dead center. You can obviously start immediately with whatever steel tip dartboard you have at home. I went and grabbed a brand new Target Aspar board just because I think the mounting the spring bracket to the back of the board is the trickiest part of this entire system. So I just wanted a fresh new board before we went through all the hassle of it. But the beauty of the Mod system is you don't have to buy everything. It's all sold separately. So you just start with the hub as your foundation, utilize whatever you have at home, and then down the road you can piece everything together or upgrade things over time to fully customize. So there's one last thing about the hub I forgot to mention. While we do that, we can show you how to remove the dartboard from the hub. You're just going to rotate without pulling towards you, no tension or anything to release that mechanism. Rotate counterclockwise till the 18 is basically in the 20 position and it's just going to pull right off almost for you. These rubber sections all around the hub, they're going to help dampen a lot of vibration and sound, and the entire hub itself is made of a really, really thick plastic. So this is going to be a solid foundation to build from that's going to have a nice quiet playing experience. To rotate your dartboard, you're just going to pull towards you enough that it clears and then start to rotate as the spring holds tension. It's going to index into that next position on its own if you release the tension. So I'll show one more time. It kind of just locks right into position. But if you hold tension before it wants to lock into there, then you can kind of just continue rotating like so. It takes a lot of practice actually. And by the way, don't ever rotate counterclockwise because you might accidentally unthread the bracket. So we always rotate clockwise, and keep in mind that spring is super strong. I'm literally out of breath just from doing that demo. So what I was doing is I was holding I was resting my right hand against the back of the wall and then using my fingertips to create that tension, and then simultaneously rotating the board with my left so I don't jam my little fingies into the rails, which I was doing earlier practicing for this video. So once you're done rotating, you're just going to simply reposition your number rings so that you've got a brand new segment for your 20, like so. Let's cover the 4 power outputs now. Your power cable is going to plug into your hub here, and then you can feed your DC or USB off to your cell phone, halo light, or additional accessories down the road. There are 2 USB ports on the right-hand side. This is one of the reasons we suggest your scoring application or cell phones placed to the right. So you could run a shorter charging cable to your device if you wanted to. This is a really long one for this example. But something to think about for cable management. And if for whatever reason you need more USB ports, you could always try a USB splitter. I'm just not sure how much power is really coming from this, so be cautious there. Then we have 2 DCs to the left side. We definitely need a DC if we're going to run a dartboard light like the Mod Halo or your Corona light. And I'm assuming the second one is just to adapt further down the road. You could do DC for a camera if you have webcam darts, And also it could be used for a laser throw line someday. And you get little rubber locks for cable management. So you just rotate them, they slide inside that groove position where you want it, you turn it 90 degrees, it locks in, and then it gives you 2 channels for 2 different cables to run through. So these really help keep all of your cords manageable and nice and tight along the rails. Speaking of the rails, let's talk about them. When it comes to these, you're going to choose the rail placement based on the footprint of your own home. We have 8 angles to choose from with the mod hub and 2 different rail lengths to choose from. We've got a shorter 350 millimeter rail that comes in a 2-pack. Then we've got a longer 500 millimeter that comes in a single rail. Currently, they work out to be the same price per rail regardless of size. Target came out with a promo video that perfectly shows the purpose of why these rails aren't always in the same spot, and the purpose of having a longer rail versus a shorter one, with different rooms morphing into the scene, showing door obstacles, walkways, different configurations, and different ways to utilize your accessories. So really your own wall space is going to primarily dictate what to do with your rails. Or say you're tucked into the corner of a room and you've got a wall to deal with. All things for you to consider when setting up your rails. Since we have endless wall space and we mounted our hub kind of further away from all the dartboards in the filming studio, I really prefer the longer 500 millimeter rail, not only because it sticks out further. As you can see, the 350 sort of gets cut off by the addition of the mod halo light, but it also I think it just displays the accessories a little better. For example, we've got 5 sets of Elysians on this darts display stand, and I've got a set around my neck. So that is almost $4,000 in retail just sitting right in this frame. So not only those 2 things, but you can also double up on accessories on the longer rail. If I wanted to, I could have the dart stand and the phone mount on there at once. These shorties are great to conserve space, however, if you're in a really tight room. They're nice for a minimalistic look, and if you don't want any unused rail space. And as you can see, I opted to do the phone mount in the bottom right corner with a short rail. And the reason being is I'm 5'6", so it feels a little more natural to turn and type in my score here versus having to reach much higher and unnecessarily wear out my dominant throwing arm. Although I will say if you mount the scoring application up higher, it is like a little nicer view of the score from far away. Last thing to consider about rail placement is if you have kids or really unskilled friends and family that are going to come over and shoot on your mod system, maybe consider putting your really expensive phone or tablet in the future mounted much higher, or your darts display as well, just because, you know, kids are going to miss low realistically, or say someone's going for a 32 out, a double out somewhere low on the board, they might miss and damage something. The rails do come with little mounting screws to go into the wall. They give you a little bit more stability, but I highly recommend that you don't screw the rails into the wall just yet, or even at all, because look, if you grab it and jiggle it, you know, there's going to be a little bit of movement, but honestly, it's not life or death. Like, do you really need to permanently mount your rails into the walls and put extra holes in there? I say just take a beat, play with your setup, and mount it later when you're definitely sure about your setup. With that said, if you tug and kind of pull downward, it really takes a lot of force to get this out there, so it's not going to naturally just fall. However, if you have a really expensive phone and you just don't want to take a chance and you don't want it to accidentally fall and break, then sure, you know, mount it for extra stability. However, you could just try doing double-sided mounting tape back here temporarily for extra support. I just think right off the bat, play around, because we changed our minds 2 or 3 times with the rails before we settled on that setup. So put the holes in the walls down the road and get your setup dialed in just the way you want it. Let's go more in-depth on all accessories now. I've already covered the 2 rail accessories. We've got the darts display stand, which comes in silver and black. Obviously, I'm going way overboard with the amount of darts that I put on there. We decided that a side rail or at an angle is the best because you can fit comfortably 3 sets of darts on there. Really, the only way it doesn't work is vertically, because you can only put 1 pair. And then when it comes to the phone mount holder, or really any of the rail accessories, it's kind of a free flow situation, but tension is really high, so it's actually quite difficult to kind of move them around. So they really hold on to there very, very well. Moving on to the mod surround, it's designed to be much thinner than industry standard surrounds, and it has an obvious seamless look with the rest of the mod system. Keep in mind, you do have to remove the surround if you want to rotate your board, because you can't quite get enough grip for that tension spring, which is Very macho. Now let's chat about the mod halo. Right off the bat, I could tell it's a far more durable light than the Corona. It's very sexy. It's going to be a nice upgrade option for you down the road. But keep in mind, if you're going to run the halo light, then you can only use the mod surround with it. Other surrounds are going to be too deep and they're going to interfere with the light. The best feature of the Halo is its compatibility with the mod system because it mounts on rails versus the Corona light that's going to snap its legs around the dartboard. So you'll have to remove the Corona light if you ever want to rotate your board, whereas the mod Halo light is just going to stay right on those rails and work seamlessly with the system. It also just looks a lot cleaner, more minimalistic. We opted to mount the Halo light vertically with 2 rails on top and bottom for more stability, and we also wanted our power cable to follow the light up the rail for a less cluttered look. The Halo comes with 2 really short rails, 170 millimeters. You can use both of them to mount your Halo like we chose to, or you can even mount it with just one for a more minimal look. In fact, for an even more bare bones look, you could ditch both the shorties and run your Halo off of the 500 millimeter rail and then accessorize on the end, because it will bolt to that too, at any angle that you choose. So really, there's just so much flexibility here. The light also comes with brackets to screw into the back. Again, in our opinion, screwing the light to the wall really isn't going to get rid of a lot of play. There's just not a ton of jiggle when you throw on the board. So we really think it's optional, again, to give you more time to dial in your setup first, then screw holes into your beautiful wall. Unless you're running just a single mount, then you are going to have to secure the light into the wall for stability. I can only assume tons of players out there already have the Target Corona light, so you can utilize this right away. You've got 2 options for power. You can either just use the power cable that it came with, but the problem with that is you have a more cluttered look by running a second cable down your hub, or you can go out and buy a DC male-to-male cable, and then that's just going to plug right into your female, and you can utilize the DC port on the hub and just go ahead and ditch the old power cable that came with the Corona. And just to reiterate, if you are going to use the Corona light instead of the Halo, then you get to utilize any surround that you want because the deepness of it's not going to matter. It will be compatible with the Corona. However, if you're going to run the Halo light, it only works with the mod surround because it's much thinner, so it doesn't interfere with the light. All right, we are almost done, folks. Let's move on to some throwing action. As you can see from the video, we have 6 different generations of Elysian barrels. We're missing generation 1 and 3, but I'll attempt to throw each of the 6 in one leg against the dartbot from Dart Counter, and I brought an extra set of Target Colts darts just in case I need a 7th round, which I'm sure I'm going to. So let's get the game set up first. All right. Let me start over because I can't remember what level we had him on. Yeah, I guess we'll just stick with the dartbot level 9. I'll confirm that. Let's start the game. Game on. We'll go in ascending order. I'm going to start with the 2nd edition barrels, holding into that raised dimple grip. $100.
100.
9. Expected more out of you, bud. All right, we're going to retire those. We're moving on to generation 4. I'm going to grip into the rear of all of the Elysian barrels. $60.
60. 45.
Moving on to generation 5. I know I've got to swap these out so they all stay in. Okay. Generation 5. Yeah, to make sure it's that bronze front. Ooh, 81.
81. 80.
Now we're upgrading to Generation 6. This is when I started actually reviewing Elysian barrels. This is our homage to Japan dart. $100.
36. You require 160.
Moving on to our 7th edition. That was our space theme. I did also review this barrel last year. A little grippier in the rear. 160 remaining. Oh, darn. That's 85.
85. 70. You require 75.
Okay, 75 remaining. Not going to worry about my flight. We are on to our last Elysian, the Generation 8 from this year, which we did review. Our old versus new theme. 58 remaining for tops for the win. Oh, 35 scored. 1 dart used on a double.
35. 81. You require 40.
I knew we would need those Cult darts, so I'm glad I grabbed them. We're out of Elysians, but we've got the Cult 01 model, that torpedo shape, at tops for the win. Outside. Oh, we did it, you guys. What was that, 7 rounds? 2 on double.
Gas game shot and a first leg.
Okay, some final thoughts here on the mod system. I meant to mention as I was throwing here, I really didn't notice much of a jiggle in my peripheral. So I'm throwing, there's really not a lot of rocking. The halo light is stable, the rails are stable, even without, like I mentioned, mounting them to the wall. Everything's kind of just free flowing here. Even with heavier accessories on the rails, like the phone holder, it is not at all distracting to my eye. So that's a huge plus for player experience. And mod is obviously Target's solution to the perfect home dartboard setup, since you have so much flexibility and you can rig the rails and accessories how you want. So just really nurture your OCD of whatever bothers you, or if you want to go bare bones simplistic. For me, if money was no option, I would go rails galore. I'd have one in all of the 8 positions and multiple accessories and try to display as many sets of darts as I could. But that's just me, and I don't get too distracted by what's going on around. I think mod is a very modern and simple approach to jazzing up the look of your home setup. It's definitely a guaranteed way to impress guests that come over and, want to play a few games on the mod. Of course, actual darts enthusiasts would, I think, geek out over this too. And the playing experience is really everything, right? So not only does it look very sleek, but I think Target really tried to future-proof this system so you can kind of endlessly improve it and adapt to change your setup if you decide to move your dartboard around in your home. That concludes the breakdown of the complete mod system experience. You can purchase the hub and every mod accessory on our website, a2zdarts.com. I genuinely hope that this review helped you pick out the right accessories and mount everything in the most optimal way for your home setup. Give us a subscribe if you haven't yet so you don't miss out on more helpful tips and product reviews and the latest and greatest in the darts world. Thanks for watching.